Hello and welcome to another tutorial from the Golden Ribbon. Today we're going to be looking at the arrow list infographic, as you saw in the previous preview. I want to send out apologies for the 2-week absence. I apologize, but it's the type of thing that will happen, you know, when clients get heavy and I have to focus my attention on them. And this week was particularly draining, so I couldn't get any content out for the previous 2 weeks, but I'm here now, and I'm going to kick the new time with a tutorial. Also, you know, happy Easter holiday to those who are in the Easter holiday. You know, wishing you a prosperous and family-filled and fun time Easter. Okay, let's get straight into it. We have the dimension as usual, which is 1700 by 1700. I have given this a gradient using 2 colors below me, and I put them in black because they're very close to white, and they're off-whites. One's more of a yellow off-white, the other's ochre. The ochre's at the top, the yellow's at the bottom. And I have an arrow here, and you don't need this arrow, but this is just basically for my reference. You know, you're not gonna need it so much, just for me to remember. Okay then, so let's get straight into it. So I'm gonna firstly create a rectangle, and I'm gonna use this arrow for reference. Get the length of it. I think this is about okay. So with the rectangle on now, I'm going to just put that right here. I think it is okay. Lift up a little higher. Good. Let's give it a different color. But I'll give it a pink. I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. If I remember correctly. Yeah. Good. I'm going to give the top one an orange. And then I'm going to hold shift while I have the S selected with the handles here. And I'm going to squash it in. Can squash it a bit more, and then I'm going to push it in from here, giving me this type of box. That's gonna rotate it actually, so that it comes about here. Yeah, that's the right way. Alright then, next I'm going to hold shift and select the pink box underneath it, and I'm going to hit Control Shift and minus sign, which is the same thing as difference. I'm going to go to the same thing going to path difference. Then I'm going to select different colors so that we can see what's happening. And we're going to go into our fill and stroke dialog box. You can right click and go to fill and stroke. You can hit Control Shift and F, or you can find it in your object tab. That is object fill and stroke. Okay, and then we're going to blur this. I'm going to give this a blur of 9.2. And this is variable, you can test out which blur works for you, but 9.2 seemed to work out for me. Good. Then I'm going to hold D and I'm going to select the canvas about in the middle. I'm going to carry it down the HSL, that's the hue, saturation and lightness. Carry it down until I get a darkish color. Also reduce the saturation a bit. Okay. And I'm going to extend this out a little bit too. Good. Now this is where things get interesting. We're going to use a clipping mask. And a clipping mask in Inkscape is basically a mask that hides an object based on the second object that you place over it, and it is key that it is over the object that you wish to contain within the mask. If it's under, you'll get different results, so you have to make sure that this is over. So because we want to clip and hide this blur, we're going to make sure that whatever we're hiding it with is on top. So we're going to right click this and go to set clip, and when we set clip, we notice that we get Our blur is looking okay. So we can bring down the lightness of it, right? And we can even toggle the blur as we want. Now we notice that as we blur it in and out, we see that the blur doesn't come out of the box area for which was clipped. And this is extremely useful when you don't want your blur to go out of bounds, or you want your blur to fit in a contained space. Great for illustration also when you're adding extra blurs to things. And for a long time in Inkscape, this was the go-to solution in place of gradient meshes, the gradient mesh feature that was found in Illustrator. Because you could click the mask, you could control the blur radius, and you could create the effect of gradients using different clip marks. But even though we have the gradient mesh feature now in the pipeline, it's still a very, very useful effect. So what I'm going to do next now is that, just to be accurate, and make sure my snapping tool is turned on, and I'm going to make sure snapping bounding box is turned on, and then go to snap bounding box corners, and you will see it will snap to the corner. I'm going to duplicate this, invert it, snap it to the corner, great, and I'm going to duplicate this, invert it, and snap it to the last corners here, and it looks really good. Okay, so now we're going to use our arrow. Brought this here for this reference. I'm just going to zoom into it. I'm going to create it. Just tracing it out. You notice the arrows have circular edges, and we're going to create those also. First, let's get the rough arrow out there. Okay. So let's make sure it's come out okay. That's alright. I'm gonna get rid of this now. Now it's key for this to work that the arrow looks like this. Has this straight edge here, because we're gonna make it seem that the arrows are coming out of the boxes. And you notice that the inset blur gives it, or the blur gives it a sort of inset into the actual background. You know, because we use a darker unsaturated color, it looks like it's been cut into the background, and that's also a useful effect too. So we have an arrow. I'm just going to give this a color. I'm just going to give this a color of orange, and I'm going to remove the stroke. Now there are simpler ways to do this, I imagine, but I'm just going to go through this. I think often enough we don't go through the node practice. So what I do in a situation like this is that I tend to create middle nodes, and I do that by selecting these two end nodes and selecting this button here, insert new nodes into selected segments. And I try to bring it as closer to the edge as possible, about somewhere here where I want the circle to start. Good. Then I can press N, I press delete on the end node. Let's get rid of the snapping, and then bring it down until I get the curve I want. You have to try and make the handles stretch along the same line as the arrow. That will give you a nice rounded corner. I'm going to do the same here. Right. We're going to go into insert new nodes into selected segments. Let's carry this node down here. Do the same for this one. Into selected segments. Carry it down here. Let's try to get it as straight as possible. Delete this node. Carry the handles so that it's perpendicular as best as you can. Zoom in so that we can get it. Alright, great. So the last thing I'm going to do now is add it for this end. Put node in the middle and put them in the middle. Drag them down about here. Drag them down about here. Okay. I hold shift while I'm dragging if they're on a straight line, be it vertical or horizontal. You know, then you can just pull the node down without altering the shape. However, if it's on the diagonal and the diagonal is not one of the set 30 degrees or 45-degree angle, you're gonna have to play about with it a little bit till you get your desired result. Okay, so we've got our nicely rounded arrow, and we're going to start to use this arrow now. Good. So I'm just needing to check out where exactly I put this. Flip that. Okay. So this is how they're going to come out. Something like this. If I remember correctly. Let me go and just quick check. Oh no, they were coming from the bottom. Alright. Yeah, these little details sometimes have to open up a pre-one to check. Okay, so they were coming from the bottom. Yeah, and actually a bit more in the middle. Wonder if I can adjust that quickly. Can I adjust that quickly? No, I think I can adjust that so quickly. That's okay. I made the boxes slightly bigger than I wanted to, but that's alright. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, duplicate this. Going to flip it. And basically these arrows are going to be moving, pointing in directions in a clockwise direction set. In fact, let me turn the snap tool, and that will give the bounding boxes option up so that I don't have to be struggling with this thing. Okay, next I'm gonna give this one the pink or the fuchsia, and then I'm gonna flip this one a bit, see if we can get it to operate. Good. And lastly, I'm going to flip this to the side, and I think this is this up. Yeah. Just check to see that's it. That's it. Good. Great stuff. There is no icon in this tutorial, by the way, so you'll only get a font. Okay, let's create it. I think this was blue, and this is brown. Oh, brown, blue. Okay. So this is pink, this is brown, and the top was blue. Okay, good. Alright then. So you have it here, and it's looking okay. So next now we have our shadows. We're going to add this 3D effect to the arrows. For that I'm going to do it for each one. Duplicate. I'm going to get my Bezier tool with B, or I can select Bezier down here. And I'm going to draw a line through the middle as best I can of the arrow. You have to make sure you duplicate the arrow also, then draw the line. So I have 2 arrows here. And I'm going to select this and the arrow. I'm going to use my Boolean modes and go to path, intersection, or control shift, or control and shift and star, which is over the 8. And we can't see anything because I have not put in a different color. So I'm going to go to my fill and stroke box, which is still open, in hue, saturation and lightness, and carry down the darkness. And already we get the effect. Really nice, huh? But we're going to add to it. and we're going to draw a line comes here, and we're going to just basically use our Bezier tool to follow the contours of the arrow as best we can. Good. And then carry it down here. Good. Then we're going to go to the full arrow, duplicate, select the arrow that we just created, shape that we just created, and we're going to use the intersect again, and that will give us a stroke. Then we're going to select this blue, go to hue, saturation, lightness, increase the lightness. Let's get rid of the stroke so we can see, and that gives us a nice sort of bevel effect. Good. Now we're not going to create these shapes again, but we can just duplicate them and carry them over. Good. And then I'm going to move them. Let's take our snap, do this for the brown. Hold Alt while moving it around. Great. Bring it down. Same, I'm gonna duplicate this shape of ours. Hold Control while I'm rotating it. Zoom in to get the best results. Now I'm doing this fast, but you can always take your time and do this and get wonderful results. Going to duplicate this, carry it down, completely flip it around. Just zoom in so you can get this thing accurate. Hold Alt while pressing the directional buttons, moves the object in small increments. Use the dropper tool, select the color, go to hue, saturation, make it slightly darker. This can come up a bit more. Good. Carry down the light bevel. Hold Control while rotating. And just save also. And carry it down. See that it's down there as best it can. Good. Select this. Make it lighter. Last but not least, the orange. Duplicate this. Carry it down. And we're going to carry it across in small increments. Select the orange. Bring the lightness slider down. Duplicate this. Bring the arrow down. Okay, I think this is looking okay. I'm going to increase the blur for these things slightly, increase them a bit more and decrease the opacity. Good. Okay, so next we're going to add our text, and I use a total of 3 texts in this. And the first one is Breeze Sands. I'm going to type in arrow. Okay, I have to go change the kerning on this again. So see the error with Inkscape. Okay, and I'm going to type in Bree. A beautiful slab serif font. Arrow. just gonna import the other. I can reduce this blur still, maybe a bit much. I'm going to import the other. Let's give it a brown. Import the other text from here. Copy. And just gonna paste them and put them aside. Okay. Gonna have to move them slightly. Okay, so the headline text is 3, the number text is chunk 5, and the small text is open sans. I'll leave a link to all 3 in the description. Here is the tutorial. I hope you learned something. For those waiting for the color theory tutorial, I did a research on YouTube and found there are so many color theory tutorials. And I have a tendency to not like my content to be the same as the rest. I try to add a little spice to it, so I'm trying to get an animation in there like what was done for the vector versus raster graphics. So as though that means a more interesting watch, that means longer periods for that to come out. So sorry for those persons, but it has to, when it comes out, you'll be good. So here it is. I hope you, like I said, I hope you learned something. Don't be afraid to ask me any questions if you have any. Next week we move on for another tutorial. Look after yourselves until then. Get up and design a new dawn. Later.